Well, I guess since I haven't done this the correct way, I should probably do it right. Um, Ha'u, Nunania Joey Allen, um, Nunania Kidu, um, Nunuma Toidaketa, Nu Shoshone Paiute, Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe, and also half Yamba Shoshone. So what I was saying was, um, how are you? Who are you? That's what Ha'u means. It's like, how are you? Who are you? It's a universal. It's usually, how are you versus who are you or what are you, or, not the context of that, but how are you? In other cultures, even especially in their mystical ones, there's always this power of the name or the power of the spirit or the power of the intention. And it has proven true through science that that's when people introduce themselves in between cultures. There's always a clash because there's always these differences. Um, so that's me. My name is Joey Allen, and the last name that I was given, or the last recognition I had, was as my great grandma would watch me play as a very small infant. I wasn't a small infant, but um, she would say things about me looking like a kidu flopping. They'd put their head up and look around and crawl around on their belly real quiet. So that they didn't get seen, kind of secret like. So she would always say stuff about me looking like a kidu. Um, so that was the last name. I've not have given or accepted a formal name, simply because that's, sorry, we have to contend with traffic. I'm trying to keep these down to about 5 minutes, so we'll jabber in between vehicles. It's not as bad as it used to be, but that was the last name in the old language of somebody that came from the old language recognized me as. Now, after that generation, the border generation of them and the after generation, I have heard people call me in my my given name, um, with the linguistic issues that they had in the letter J, because it wasn't in our language. There was no J in our language. So J, L, there's a few others that really didn't exist in our language because our language was based around this. Those are really hard letters. Mechanical letters is what they sound like. And it wasn't something that we were used to. So those are my names and where I'm from. I've had it out there for so long. I'm pretty sure you've kind of gleaned that I'm the sole proprietor of Stillwater Paiute Decoys. My wife helps me out when I go places, as the assistant, I guess is what you call her. But since we have, boys and one is less capable, it's kind of turned back to me again. And in the time that I've been doing it, I've lived in and out of Stillwater my whole life. This is Stillwater, Nevada, near Fallon, and around northern Nevada. Been around Northern California, but I've kind of roamed in adjacent states and places. So it's not like I haven't been places and seen stuff, but it's always been here. And I primarily lived on the reservation most of my life. Now, let's see where I'm from. Oh, my other people. Now I do. Half of my side is Eastern Shoshone, and I won't mention the names because they're like my Allen side, my here in Stillwater side. It's a wide range of people. So those families, they have their wide range of people, and they'll chime in if they're connected, and I appreciate it. All the people that I've met have always treated me well and always said good things and thought good thoughts. So always good things with them. And aside from that, this is in the matriarchal formation of our families. That's kind of what would happen is the women would have to accept the men in their families, on their resources. But I couldn't live where we would have to live, and I won't say what city, but it's a large city where we'd have to move to, and there's no way we could do it, and I couldn't do it after just visiting off and on. It's fine. But just long term, I just would not. I would not thrive. Um, but we've kind of carved out this little spaceman bubble of a house here because they have some respiratory issues and some immune issues. So it's been kind of an issue, interesting. We've gotten rid of a lot of the vegetation around the yard, and we've had beds that we've grown in here over the last 10 years, off and on. So now we're opening those beds back up in my 2-year compost hole here, and I'm gonna have to get some fill dirt moved in because we're missing a lot of dirt. It's a 30-year-old house, about a 30-year-old house, so it's had a lot of runoff. It sat a long time empty, so a part of the yard, most of the yard went dry. Grass died, some trees died. It was pretty ugly when we got here. So we've just kind of kept the Indian house in a nice neighborhood, Indian yard in a nice neighborhood. Inside is pretty nice, it's clean. It's just we never replace the carpet because we end up having dogs and kids, and so we've got to replace that thing soon. But we've carved out our little Nobi, our little house, our little home here, and we honestly want out. We want something not necessarily smaller, but more practical, and to have somebody in the house who's not completely physically capable. I'm past my 5-minute mark, by the way. That's not completely capable. It's necessary to have the right amount of space. Now we have the right amount of space, but it's just not situated properly. And in the old days, that wasn't an issue. They had how their house was situated, and you sat low in these places, and you stayed warm around a small fire. It wasn't inefficient to have it was inefficient to have these big fires because when you're in a reed home, if you're in a dry reed home, you don't want this huge fire because you won't have a dry reed home. That's simple. But when you have this inefficient heating that you can't heat your whole home, or you can't heat your whole living space, or it costs a lot, it takes a lot of fuel, it takes a lot of your resources. That's something we run into these days now. I mean, everybody, not just us. What did I say? I won't cross streams right now. I've been posting a lot of different stuff, but for the introduction, that's what I'm trying to put forth, is that we have been reassimilating with the earth a little bit in this little spot. We've been coming back, and me, in my area here, this is the center. Our birthplace is up in the Stillwaters, high up in the Stillwaters. That's where we were born from. But this is our center in this generation. We've lived innumerable generations, and we've lived several ages. To give us a quick breakdown, we were born on these really high mountains. They were actually islands at the time because of ancient Lake Lahontan. And as we came down, that was an age. There was a boreal climate. It was really cold. It was cold water time is what they would probably call it. And at that time, the water was too high and too fresh and too current and too turbulent. It was still wearing down the earth underneath it as it was dropping. At some point in time, I can go through a timeline if you want to, but it's going to take a long time. But when the next age came, when this age came, the drying time, what happened is there was a sudden drop in the water and it started to disperse. And as water disperses, it leaves the salinity in the minerals. So all those minerals, all that stuff, including a sudden warming, it just decimated the water. I mean, it evaporated the water, but it was warm and lush that whole time and green. And in that, our second time, it faded way down into this dry area where we had more land suddenly, and we had more space and we could walk and explore, and our bands just they were prolific forever and ever and ever, and that was 10,000-12,000 years ago. But in the end of our drying time, we're not at the absolute end. We're at the lower portion of the drying time where everything is supposed to dry up completely, and then we kind of disperse into better lands or higher areas. And then I think it's supposed to be 5,000 years or so, it's supposed to start a wet weather trend again. And then it's supposed to start filling up 5 to 15,000. I can't remember what it was in the world climate trend. Is that going to happen now? It's out of our hands. Whether we've done enough damage or not, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm not here to try and tell you how to save the world. I'm here to try and tell you how to save your world, your center, your middle, because we can't. It's gone. I sit right here. I live right under it. Under our center for our second age, or excuse me, our third age, or where we witness a drying time. Because when the fourth age comes, it's when we're supposed to be. But that's when the earth is supposed to renew this whole thing and fill up and do its thing all over again. And then we start all over again. So when we say infinitely sustainable, it's that infinitely sustainable, because we would come back and repopulate again. After it's all done, it's supposed to get cleaned up, and then we come back and we witness how it happens again. That was the basic understanding, and that's what we were able to figure from that time in the mountains that were actually islands that came down, and understanding that we weren't raising up, we weren't ascending, the water was drying. We didn't need science. We had our own science to figure that out. And then that's when the spiritual side came in and said, well, wait a minute. Because things don't stop and they go round and round and round and they come back around again, how exactly do we do that? So when you have all this art out here that's of another age, of another age, of another age, of another age, and you expect answers from your contemporary people, I can tell you why you can't get those answers. But then I can also tell you how you can get them back. That's if you see where this light pole, I'm trying to, camera's messing with me. See the light pole right there? I've been using these timeline. You see the fence right here, the notches in a timeline. You know, we're at a certain point. This is the middle, the end, however you want to see. But you have these different ages, and then it comes back around, and it starts all over again. You know, basic life cycle stuff. Why it has to be mysticism or religion or spirituality or Native American or whatever it is that you have to hold on to, it's completely understandable, because now it all makes sense. And that's how I wanted to introduce myself. It's 12 minutes now, I might as well go to 15. But this is normally what I'm doing. We have tours that happen out here in certain places. We have site visits. We have all these different activities that go on. Indoor, outdoor, people, no people, very few people, lots of people, whatever it is that we're always talking. I can name people, and they can, in the comments of these things, recognize themselves, because, or somebody can tag them, because they go out and they do this and they talk to people and they show people and they teach people and they show people and they teach people, and over and over and over and over again. And you'd be surprised. I've done tours out here for people from different countries, tourism people from different countries. This is fact. I see these people come through. They're interested in these things, and once science comes around again, we're scientifically relevant again. Right here, we're scientifically relevant again, after some ancients were brought back and then put back. We're relevant again. The world wants to understand that relevance, and look what happened now. Look how relevant you're going to be now. And I tell people in these other posts, and I'm trying not to skip things, but I try to tell them in the line of Indians that none of these lives were wasted. They all built up to something. And if you look at all the old prophecies of all the old people, from wherever you talk about, they always talk about is it all comes back around, no matter what you do. And we got to try and keep ourselves in a way. It doesn't have to be pure. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be conscious of it. And you have to make an effort, if not for the world, then at least for your region or your state or your county, your city, your tribe, your yard. You know, even if your yard is messed up, maybe go clean it up, or maybe just stop throwing stuff out there. Like I told the people here worried about the turtles don't get our straws, the landfills do. Most of the United States likely have landfills and aren't out there dumping in the ocean. But the ones that do, you guys, you're the ones, the straws that are out there. We are landlocked and our trash stays here. And it goes, and I can tell you, I can give you exact coordinates of where my trash goes. Is that good? No. Is that bad? Probably. But there's options. You know, please listen to the options. That's not an acceptable option in my mind, but it leaves the ability for technology to come in and clean it up. And I've been witnessing these things around this hill, this sacred center, around and around and around and around. So I'm trying not to get, again, I went too far, beyond 5 minutes, and I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. But it's not mystic in the sense of a lot of people thinking about it. It's observation. And since we have this route in this area and have a continuity, again, like this fence line, we have a continuity of these things. If you notice how loose my gate is, you see it flaps around. With everything that's happening here and everything that's disappearing, people take it off these lands all the time. They don't make recognition of it with the museum or the county or nothing. They just put it in their pocket and leave. Something as small as that, or something as small as, you know, your dogs piling up their poop in a sacred spot. Something as tiny as that adds up to one thing or another later on. And as they find less and less of us, because even in these lands, we're starting to disappear at a higher rate because people, now they don't want us to be found. And it's been shown in the past of people going out there and finding our remains specifically just to remove them. And then a lot of it ends up on the international market. The shocking amount ends up in government-funded institutions with no repercussion and no need or want to give it back. There's probably an amazing amount of that, and some of it just gets thrown in the trash or buried out somewhere where nobody can find it because it's in the interest of developers, and they've done it in the past. And I'm not accusing anybody of modern times, because it seems like the people now are pretty moral about those things and want to do right, just like the Navy here, the issues that we're having. In the root of it, they want to do what's right. And protecting people with more safety and barrier zones is right. But having not addressed the past the way that we have been trying to, as we address the present and we address the future, you know, that's the failure of communication that we're having. And there's no need for that. We're contemporary enough to assert ourselves government to government, person to person. It's not that difficult. So I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of projects, including one that's going to document my physical changes. Now, mind you, I'm not thin and trim and fit, but last year I must have got down to between 265 and 270, and I've probably not weighed that since early in high school. And my wife was concerned because I probably looked sickly. I felt amazing, but it took a lot to maintain it. And if you know athletes that do that, they can only do it so long. You can only maintain that so long before you burn out or hurt yourself. And I ended up injuring myself, and then we got sick, and then I rehabbed both, and then I ended up getting sick again, and then I rehabbed that, and then I injured my rib again. And so it caused a lot of delay, which was good, because if I hadn't had that delay and I was still pushing in training now, I might not have survived the flu that we went through. That's a hard thing to say publicly. I might not have survived that. It was all of us. We all had it. Severe, severe flu. So anything that's coming up, and I'm coming up on 20 minutes, I'm going to stop, but I'm going to tell you anything that's coming up, please take it seriously. Don't joke. Have a lot of common sense. Listen to what science is saying. Listen to what tradition is saying, and listen to what yourself is saying. Remember those three things? Because that fourth thing is that final dictation. You don't know one way or the other. So thank you for listening. Sorry about the long introduction, and I might not even post this now. It seems very long. We'll see what happens.